Chapter 1 of the recruitment and selection will tackle about the human resource strategy, development, and planning. Now, this chapter will discuss the various roles and activities of the human resource function first. Then it will examine how to develop a market or customer-oriented human resource function. Next, the chapter will describe the current structure of most HR functions. And then finally, the chapter will conclude with a discussion of new technologies that can improve the human resource effectiveness, including the Internet expert systems, groupware, imaging, and various software applications. So that is how we are going to be strategically develop and plan part of the chapter 1. Now, the roles that the HR plays in the recruitment and selection process in firms and today's and the categories of the human resources management activities will be also described. We will be able to also discuss how the recruitment and selection process through the HRM function can define its mission and market. And it will also help us explain the approaches to evaluate the effectiveness of the recruitment and selection through the HRM practices. And then we also have be able to describe the new structures for the human resource management functions through the recruitment and selection process. And the chapter will also teach us how to describe outsourcing human resource management activities that can improve the service delivery, efficiency, and effectiveness. Okay. Now, the human resource under the recruitment and selection process practices can help companies gain competitive advantage over its competitors. Now, virtually every human resource function in top companies is going through a transformation process in creating a function that can play its new strategic role while successfully fulfilling its other roles and functions in the selection and the recruitment and selection process. Now, what are the activities of the recruitment and selection process under the HRM activities? So number one is the transactional activities are the day-to-day transactions a company makes. These activities are low in strategic value. Now, the traditional activities, however, are the nuts and bolts of the human resource in the recruitment selection process, such as a performance management, training, recruiting, selection, compensation, and employee relations are being articulated. And these activities have moderate strategic values. Now, the transformational activities will create a long-term capability and adaptability for the firm. Now, these activities will include knowledge management, management development, the cultural change, and the strategic redirectional and renewal. And then these activities comprises the greatest strategic value for the firm. Now, in the recruitment and selection process, the strategic management of the human resource management function to become truly strategic in its orientation. Now, it must view itself as being a separate business, the business entity that will engage in strategic management in an effort to effectively serve the various internal customers. Now, how do you do that? Okay, a customer orientation is one of the most important change in the human resource function under the recruitment and selection process. The functions attempts to become strategic in its approaches. The most example of this strategic selection and recruitment process under the HR customer is the line managers who require the human resource services. And then others include strategic planning, the planning team, and the employees all together. Now, the product of the human resource department must be identified. For example, line managers want to have a high quality employees that are committed to the organization. So that is the functions of the recruitment and selection. Now, the technologies to the human resource will meet its customers' needs will vary depending on the needs that is being satisfied. For example, in the selection systems, the selection process will ensure that applicants that are going to be selected for employment have the necessary knowledge, necessary skills, and the abilities and have to provide value to the organization, thus making him an asset of the company. And that is uh, the very relevant function of recruitment and selection process. Now, how do we build the recruitment and selection process strategy, through the human resource functions and management? Now, the basic process will depict the basic process for human resource strategy. Uh, there will be issues. There will be a lot of issues in terms of the basic processes. But then apparently, the HR process team will need to identify the specific people and the issues that goes with it that will be critically addressed in order for the business to succeed. Now, the HR strategy is communicated definitely, to the relevant parties, both internally and externally, to service function. Now, another one is involving the line executives. Now, because the recruitment and selection through the HR strategy will seek to address the business issues, the involvement of the line executive is necessary. So, involving those in charge of running the business can create uh, the quality of information from which the human resource strategy is created. And then the involvement can occur in many ways. So there are a lot of ways now for you to determine and be involved with. Now, what are these? So number one is the line executive could simply provide an input. Okay? And then line executives could be members of a team that would develop the recruitment and selection process and making the human resource strategy effective. And then another one, once strategy is developed, line managers could receive communications with the human resource strategy information. And that is very much important. And then another one is line managers could formally approve a strategy that is applicable to the recruitment and selection process. Now, we also characterize the human resource strategies through the recruitment selection process. Now, the four categories of the recruitment and selection process through the HR business relationship can be identified in four parts, no? So, and categories. So, number one is the HR focused HR functions. Number two is the people link HR functions. Number three is the business link HR functions and business-driven HR functions. So these are characteristic of the recruitment and selection process through the HR strategies. Okay, so strategically managing the HRM function. So how do we do that? So this case scenario, no, I'll be giving you explores the topic of going global. For example, Citigroup has one of the largest global operations in the world already. And most US companies that go global send expatriates to run the operations. However, the Citigroup of companies is building a management team that does not all come from the United States. And so what's the effects of it? This will develop diversity in human resource capital that will reflect the diversity in their markets. Okay, so that's one case that is very glaring. As an international company going global, sending teams in the countries that they would like to be represented. But then apparently there are a lot of constraints legally and operationally, for cost-cutting measures. But they will be recruiting and selecting potential applicants coming from, or potential or part of the employment pool in the host country. So that would create diversity, in the operations and the selection and recruitment process. Now, how do we measure the recruitment and selection process to the HRM effectiveness? Now, having good measures of the functions effectiveness will provide the following benefits. So now, one is marketing the function. Uh, it is important that evaluation will be recognized as a sign that the human resource function cares about the organization as a whole and is trying to support the operations, trying to support the production, and trying to boost the marketing and other functions in the company. So that's marketing the function. Now, providing accountability is another one. In the provision of the accountability, evaluation helps determine whether the selection and recruitment process through HRM function is meeting its objectives and effectively using the efficiency of its budget provided. Next is the approaches for evaluating effectiveness. And these are two commonly used approaches for evaluating the effectiveness of a recruitment and selection process through the HRM practices. Now, what are these? So, number one is the audit approach. In the audit approach, it focuses on reviewing the various outcomes of the HR functional areas. So, these are both key indicators and customer satisfaction measures are typically collected. And then one important source of effectiveness data can be the customer themselves. Okay? And one important internal customer is the employee of the firm. And employees often have both direct and indirect contact with the HR function. So therefore, the problem with assessing effectiveness only from the employee's perspective is that often they are responding not only from the standpoint of a good of the firm, but rather from their own individual perspective, and that would create biases. Now, many firms have gone to survey of top-line executive as a better means of assessing the effectiveness of the recruitment and selection process through the HR function. Another one is the analytic approach. The analytic approach focuses on either determining whether the introduction of a program or practice has the intended effects, or estimating the financial costs and benefits resulting from the recruitment and selection process. Okay. Now, how do we assess it? No? How do the analytic approach? So, evaluating a training program is one strategy for determining whether the program works. And then the second strategy involves determining the cost, the money, the dollar value or the peso value of the training program, taking into account all the costs associated with the operations of the program. And then another one is the analytical approach is more demanding than the audit approach because it requires the detailed use of statistic and finance. Okay, so that's kindly costly for the company. Now, how do we improve the HRM, the selection and recruitment process through the HRM intervention effectiveness? Now, once a strategic direction has been established and the HR through the selection and recruitment process effectiveness is evaluated, leaders of the HR function can explore how to improve its effectiveness in contributing to the firm's competitiveness. Now, restructuring to improve human resource effectiveness through the recruitment and selection process uh, will experience through the centers for expertise usually consist of the functional specialists in the traditional areas of human resource such as recruitment, selection, training, compensation. And these individuals ideally act as a consultant in the development of state-of-the-art systems and processes for use in the organization. So that's strategically part of an efficient planning. Now, the field generalist consists of, in the recruitment selection process, uh, generalists who are assigned to a business unit within the firm. It's an HRM generalist who are assigned or who will be assigned to a business unit within the firm. Now, the service center will consist of individuals who will ensure that the transactional activities are going to be delivered throughout the organization. Now, outsourcing to improve the recruitment and selection process through the intervention of the HRM, measuring its effectiveness. So, outsourcing will entail contracting with an outside vendor to provide a product or service to the firm, as opposed to producing the product using employees within the firm. Okay. Now, why is this done in that way? So outsourcing, because usually this is done for one or two reasons. Either the outsourcing partner can provide the service more cheaply than it would cost to do it internally, or the partner can provide more effectively than it can be performed internally. So that's the rationale behind it. Now, firms primarily outsource transactional activities and services of HR, such as the pension and benefits administration as well as payroll. So these are actually part of the strategy for an effective selection and recruitment process. Now, improving the recruitment and selection process to the HRM effectiveness through the process of redesigning. The process redesign will enable the recruitment and selection process to a more effectively delivered HRM services. Uh, how do we do that? Reengineering is the term. Reengineering is the complete review of critical work processes and redesign to make them more efficient and able to deliver higher quality. This reengineering process has 4 steps. So what are these? Number 1, part of the recruitment and selection process strategy planning is to identify the process. Now, managers to control the process should be identified and asked to be part of the re-engineering team. And then number 2, understand the process after identifying them. So in understanding the process, a variety of techniques are available to help with this step, such as data flow diagram should be also engaged. And then data entity relationship diagram should also be identified. Scenario analysis, now you should provide a scenario for you to be able to know the how uh, 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 how the flow will go through the scenario analysis. And then surveys or focus groups and cost benefit analysis should be also installed in the process. So we have already to identify the process, understand the process, and third, redesign the process. Now, during this phase, the team develops models. The team develop models by after testing them, after choosing a prototype, and then determining how to integrate the prototype into the organization. Okay, so that is redesign the process, and then lastly, implement the process. Now, the company should try out the new process and in a controlled setting before introducing it widely. Okay, so that's how we manage it. Now, improving the recruitment and selection process through HRM effectiveness is using new technologies. The human resource recruitment selection through the human resource management information system. New technologies are current application of knowledge, even the current application of the procedures and the equipment that have not previously been used, the new technology that we call it. Now, how do we engage the new technologies? So, number 1 is transacting or transaction processing. The transaction processing is the computation and calculations used to review the documents of the recruitment and selection process through the HRM decision and practices. Now, these include documenting employee relocation, payroll expenses, uh, and training course enrollment, and after determining their joining the company through the proper selection and recruitment and selection process. So that is transaction process. Now, next is the decision support system. How? These are systems designed to help managers solve problems. Uh, they usually include a what if. They make scenarios out of it and anticipate what the hypothesis that goes with it, to validate the hypothesis that goes with the decision support system of the what if features. No? So you're not sure. Yeah. Okay. And then the expert systems is another one. The expert systems are computer systems incorporation, or rather, incorporating the decisions that is being ruled of people deemed to have expertise in a certain area. So there are expert systems, so they know the process. They live with it, they eat it, they embrace it. So expert system. Now, under the this function, the technology will enable the employees to gain a complete control over their training and benefits enrollment. Even the selection and recruitment process would be us uh, having a complete control over who to choose, what process to be engaged. And then the creation of a paperless employment, no, of the recruitment process. And then streamlining the HRM department work. Now, knowledge-based decision support technology, which allows the employees and the managers to access knowledge as needed. And then another one is the employees and managers to select the type of media they want. They wanted to use and to send and receive information in the recruitment and selection process. Now, another one is the work to be completed at any time and place because technology would warrant it and would provide that the convenience. And then at the same time, in the recruitment and selection process, technology is closer monitoring of the process, no, the employees' work in the recruitment and selection process. Now, another one is the interactive voice technology. It uses a conventional personal computer to create an automated phone response system. Now, this technology is especially useful for benefits of the administration, for the benefits of the human resource office, for the benefits of the recruitment and selection process. Now, um, network and client server architecture is also part of the technology. A network is a combination of desktop computers, computer terminals, and mainframes or mini computers that share access to databases and a means to transmit information throughout the system. And then another one under the network and client server architecture is the client server architecture is a common form of network that provides the means of consolidating data and applications into a single system. Okay. Another one is the relational database. Now, the relational database are information is being stored in separate files that look like tables and can be linked by common elements such as a name. And users of relational databases have the ability to file and receive information according to any field or multiple fields across the databases. And relational technology will allow databases to be established in several different locations even. And users in one plant or division can access data from any other company locations. Or even, in the recruitment and selection process, they will be able to determine the places and the location that the potential applicant will be joining the company. Next is imaging. In imaging, the process for scanning documents and then storing them electronically and retrieving them. Now, this is particularly useful because Paper files take a large volume of space and are difficult to access because you have to file them and then seek, alphabetically, or with the piles of 1,000 applicants coming along. It's very hard to select, and then it will be very hard for the recruitment process for you to be able to somehow get the hard copy and then check it out. Okay. Now, the expert system are technologies that mimic a human expert. And the expert systems have three elements. So that would help a lot, no? What are these three elements that would help the expert system? A knowledge base that contains facts, figures, and rules about specific subject, people, and whatever biometrics. And then a decision-making capability that draws conclusions from those facts and figures to solve problems and answer questions. So in an interview process, so that is needed. And a user interface that gathers and gives information to the person using the system. Okay? Now, another one is the groupware. In a groupware or electronic meeting software, it is a software application that enables multiple users to track, to share, and to organize information, and thus making it work on the same document simultaneously. That's very efficient. Now, the software application for the recruitment and selection through the HRM is improving the process in the selection and recruitment process effectiveness through the new technologies, the HRM, recruitment and selection through HRM. Now, since the mid 1990s, the HRM functions in the recruitment and selection process functions sought to play a more strategic role in organization. Now, the first task is to eliminate transactional tasks in order to free up a lot of time, and to definitely make focus on traditional and transformational transactions or activities. And the speed requirements of the e-business uh, will force HRM managers to explore how to leverage technology for the delivery of traditional and transformational recruitment and selection process activities. Now, in the recruitment and selection, the traditional recruitment and selection process have required considerable face-to-face communications. And technology has transformed these processes and make it more easier in terms of accessibility. And then technology has enabled firms to actually monitor the hiring processes to minimize the potential for discriminatory hiring decisions, because it can easily be go public and not be concealed, and information are not easily be concealed. Okay. Now we go to the compensation and rewards. In the compensation systems, in organization probably reflect the most pervasive of bureaucracy within the recruitment and selection process through the HRM, because you already identify the functions of a particular department, and this time the compensation system. Leveraging technology may allow firm to better archive their compensation goals with a considerably less effort. Okay, that is also one of the strategically in the strategically development and planning under human resource of the recruitment and selection process. Now, in the training and development, what happens here? A number of firms have begun delivering training via the web, and some types of training can be done effectively online via internet or intranet, while others may not. So now we are experiencing it right now. So because of the pandemic, we were able to engage the internet in the delivery of our lessons. So online delivery of lessons. So in the recruitment and selection process, they are now also doing it long before us, long before the pandemic happens. And the challenge of a speedy delivery of the selection and recruitment selection process to HRM services brings the concept of the internet-based training to the forefront. And firms compete to attract and retain both customers and talented employees. Now, how well a firm develops and treats existing employees largely determines how well it archives these outcomes, or achieves these outcomes. Now, and technology will allow firms to deliver training and development for at least some skills or knowledge faster, in a more efficiently way, and a more possibly more effectively ways. And it can quickly merge training, the communications, and the immediate response to a strategic contingencies. Okay. Okay. And then to end the chapter, the future of the recruitment and selection process of the HR intervention, no? The future for the HR professionals through the selection and recruitment process, the career in the HR profession seems brighter than ever. And firms actually are needing to seek the balance between attracting, motivating, and retaining the very best talent, and keeping the labor and administrative costs as low as possible. And finding such a balance will require, in the recruitment and selection process, the HR leaders who have a deep knowledge of the business, combining with a deep knowledge of the selection and recruitment process to the HR issues, to tools, processes, and technology. Okay, so that is we conclude with the conclusion of the chapter 1 on the human resource strategy development and planning under the recruitment and selection course.